What up, Christ Redeemer? Sorry, it's been a bit for these gospel grits. Just a little busy season of life, but all is well. Picking up on Feelings and Faith by Brian Borgman as we just make our way through it. Today we're gonna start actually chapter or part 3, but it's not. I'm not gonna cover the whole section because I actually want to go through the different emotions one by one, and there'll be probably shorter videos because I won't be saying a ton on each one, but I think it's good to actually work through the different ungodly emotions and how we mortify them in Christ. And today's it's sinful anger. And Brian Borgman makes a great point on sinful anger really just being that which is consuming us inside of us. He provides verses, and there's plenty of verses in the Proverbs and the Psalms that show the danger of anger, the danger of sinful anger. Now, anger in and of itself is not sinful. Anger has a godliness to it and righteous anger. God has a righteous anger with the wicked. God has a righteous anger with unfair balances and money. God has true anger. So anger in and of itself is not sinful. What is sinful is unbridled anger or uncontrollable anger or a sinful anger that just rises out of us where we then lose self-control and anger consumes us. James 1:20 says, "For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." And what this means is that sometimes we think that if we just get really mad, then the situation will change. If we just get really mad at our children, maybe they'll be good kids. If we just get really mad at the circumstance, maybe the circumstance will change. But it won't. The sinfulness of man, the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And so what really Brian Borgman is getting at in sinful anger is at the heart of the matter, there's a functional atheism at play that basically is saying, well, no God sent me this situation. No God is behind this circumstance. No God is behind the traffic. No God is behind the one who just, sinned against me. There's nothing of God's purposes in this life. Therefore, my anger is justified because there's nothing or no one in it. There's no purpose behind it. It's all just functional atheism. But at the core of it all, it's really just a sinful desire to control the situation. It's a desire to have such a grasp on the situation that anything outside that situation that falls outside the manner in which you, the control freak, he doesn't use that word. I'm using that word for the sake of effect. You, the control freak, can't control, therefore, anger. Right? You can't control this circumstance, whatever the circumstance is, and you need such control over it that anger rises out of you, and you think that anger is going to somehow get you control in that situation. And in reality, because of that functional atheism, guess who the would-be, wannabe God is now in the circumstance? God has complete sovereign control in each situation, not you. He's in control, not you. So when you lash out in anger because you're a control freak and you can't really get yourself up to accept circumstance and deal with it in a godly like attitude, therefore you liken yourself to be God. You want godlike authority. You want godlike rule. You want godlike control, but you seek to bring it about through anger, through harshness, through loud words, through putting down, through just some form of bullying or whatever, or just complete rage, seeing red, so to speak. And all that is sinful and it needs to be mortified. And so one of the first things that we need to do if we're going to mortify the sin of anger is to realize we're not God, to see the purposes of God in all circumstances. Now remember, I'm not talking about righteous anger. Yes, there's a time and a godliness about righteous anger. I'm talking about sinful anger. Whatever is inside of you is always going to make its way out of you. Whatever is beneath the surface, as it were, and it's a lot of desire to control situations perfectly or control children, control thoughts, control whatever. All that's going to come out of you, and it's going to be coming out of you in anger. And so what we need to do in our mortifying of sinful anger, number one is to call it what it is, right? That's what confession means in the scriptures. It's to call the sin what God would call that sin. So instead of saying, well, it's just because this, or well, you said this, or well, this happened to me, right? And so I acted like this because no, I was off the handles because I had sinful anger, right? And then once you confess your sin, it's saying, I need to think about the purposes of God. I need to think about the gospel of God. I need to think about the goodness of God. I need to have the patience like Christ is patient with me. I need to have the long suffering, blessed reality like Christ is long suffering in the blessed reality for me. Right? Those things that we love about God and his slow to anger with us should be the very thing that drives us to be slow to anger toward others. Right? We should be slow to anger because we should not be so easily led astray by circumstance, by comments, by things that don't go our way. And really, when we do have this ugly head of sinful anger rise up, we should think, why am I acting as though there's not a God behind all things that come into my life? How can I respond to this in a way that says, okay, yes, I care about the situation. Yes, it needs to be addressed, but I don't do it in anger. I do it in the same godly obedience as if I wasn't angry. So we need to confess the sin, call it what it is. We need to look to the gospel, see how God is slow to anger with those who trust in his son. And we need to respond to circumstances like that, like Bible believing, like God believing, like Christ honoring Christians, rather than becoming control freaks who can't control our own emotions because we can't control the situation. Then we end up blowing up and actually making a mockery of our so-called love for a slow to anger God. So this sin of ungodly, unbridled, sinful anger is really a sin of control, a sin of wanting to have everything the exact way that we would have it. And we lose our emotion, we lose our cool because we think we are God. And that needs to be confessed for what it is and repented of so that we could walk, not in anger, but walk in the joy of the Lord.